All right, welcome back to Metal Messiah Radio. We are delighted to have our special guest today, Ian Parry. Ian, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing fine. I'm sitting here in the Netherlands, not far from Amsterdam, just outside Amsterdam, and I went cycling this afternoon with my wife. I promised to go cycling because I've been locked up in the studio for like the last year. So we're having glorious weather. It's in the 80s, about 26, 27. So finally, nice weather's here. So all positive.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about Ian Parry. Tell us about your projects and a little bit about what's been going on with you lately.
Okay, well, my name is Ian Parry because I'm from Liverpool, UK. I moved from Liverpool to London, joined the band, did an audition, joined the band with Zach Starkey, Ringo Starr's son. Had some amazing experiences. Got drunk at Pete Townsend from The Who, his birthday party with all the Page 3 girls. Flew on, had a crazy flight to Morocco with the band playing for the King of Morocco.
Oh, wow.
And we got drunk backstage and gave beers to the guards who were protecting us with machine guns and played around like kids playing shooting games, half drunk, bunch of drunken rockers. Then I got a job in Holland with a band called Hammerhead, moved to the Netherlands, and I've lived here ever since. Basically, I've been doing music now for 40 years. This is my 40th year.
Congrats.
I started in 81 with Mono Pacific.
Congrats.
And I've been in bands like Elegy. I did my own solo albums. I did my 5th solo album last year, Inflagrante Delicto. And now this is the 2nd Rock Emporium album, Brute Force. So...
And that album just came...
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, you've been a busy man. And that album just, the 2nd Rock Emporium album, the first one actually was called Society of Friends, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And that one came out 2016?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So,
I got it out on Escape Music, a UK label.
Okay, so this is your second kind of, what do you call that, like a compilation of a group of people.
You could call it, I wanted it to be a band because I used to do a project called Consortium Project where I brought musicians together from around the world. I was in Florida, like I mentioned earlier, in Florida a lot, working with the guys from Camelot. Mm-hmm. And I did 5 Consortium albums. That was prog rock metal.
Right.
And we had over the period of about 12 years. And I wanted to do with Rock Emporium something different. I wanted it actually to be a band. With the first album, Society of Friends, I had a band together.
Right.
There weren't that many guest musicians. But with this Rock Emporium album, everybody was in lockdown. I started asking because of this this beautiful virus that's gone on tour the last couple of years. And everyone was in lockdown, and I asked musicians, do you have any songs? Would you like to guest? Do you want to do a bass? And when I added up how many musicians were guesting on the album, it was over 25 musicians and singers. I've also got Wade Black from Crimson Glory, your neck of the woods.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I've known Wade. I met him years ago, back in the late 90s, hanging out with him with Casey, with Camelot. Mm-hmm. And we kept in touch ever since, but it was the first time we had an opportunity to work together. He sings on the Queen tribute. We did a special being 30 years since we sadly lost Freddie Mercury.
Right.
We decided to do a special tribute on the album.
And that's that one Vision, which is, that's the 11th track, that One Vision, correct?
Yeah, I called it a bonus track, but it's actually part of the album. I just wanted the fans and the press to know that we have an album of 10 songs, and we did this afterwards as an extra. That's why I called it a bonus tribute. Yeah.
That's fun. That's fantastic. So
One Vision. We chose One Vision. I met Roger Taylor when I was in a band called Vengeance. I used to sing in a hard rock band, Vengeance, back in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And we played in a festival by Lake Geneva in Switzerland. And he had a band called The Cross, and so he was there sound checking, and Vengeance played on the bill as well with The Cross. And I had no idea at the time that Freddie Mercury, unfortunately, had AIDS and that he was dying not so far away. He was doing his recordings. They have a studio not far away on Lake Geneva there.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, the connections have always been there in the background. I came over to Holland in 85 when Queen... in 83, and I left Holland in 85 after I saw Queen play at Live Aid.
Oh, wow.
There's always been... I missed seeing them live here in Holland. They played in Leiden.
Right.
And I was then in London at the time. And then I came over to Holland, and Queen were in Wembley playing the Live Aid concert.
And you're like,
really
dang it! You just missed them every time.
And I missed him every time, and we said hello to Roger Taylor, but we never got a chance to hang out with him and chat at the festival. So anyway, it was great. Colleagues of mine are big Queen fans, and it was something being British. I also wanted to give something as a tribute back. Brian May and the rest. I mean, quality musicianship. You've got quality musicianship in America, but for me, Queen was one of the British bands where what gave me a lot of inspiration, as well as Whitesnake and Dio and a lot of other bands.
Absolutely.
But, Queen was one of them that were there right in the beginning. Seven Seas Arise when I was a kid at school, and then 16 Bohemian Rhapsody was a hit in the UK before it went worldwide. And so I grew up with this, all this cool rock music as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
so it was great to give a tribute back to them.
That's funny. I was going to even ask you who your influences were, and you pretty much covered that by saying you starting with the Queen story and then segueing with Whitesnake and say Dio and that. Do you have any other influences, just growing up and throughout your music career? Because you've had a pretty amazing career with Elegy and Crystal Tears, and then Eternity's End. Toby and I were talking about your Eternity's End project because
that was a cool album. That was really one of the best metal albums I've ever made. Metal albums. Christian Munzner writes real cool metal songs.
Agree.
But they're still melodic. That's the great thing. But I worked also with Royal Hunt, Andre Anderson. I did Black and Black, the solo album. Going back, my influences were right in the beginning. It was really, maybe this sounds funny, but my biggest influence was Paul Rodgers and Queen.
Oh, wow.
Paul Rodgers and Bad Company 3. I used to play drums first.
Oh, wow.
I started for a year and a half. I used to steal my dad's drum kit, sneak down to the local youth centre, and then play a gig in front of all the school kids. And then I used to have to sneak the drum kit back, and then my brother told my father, and then he said, well, is it okay? And he said, well, as long as he asks me, he can borrow my kit. My dad was a drummer for years, jazz. He did jazz, and he didn't do any rock. But I came from the old school of British heavy rock, heavy metal.
Right.
And that's what I grew up with. Deep Purple was a huge influence for me as far as Led Zeppelin was a little bit before my time.
Right.
I remember the song "Remains the Same" came in the cinemas in the around the world. It went in. It was like a cinema movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Song "Remains the Same."
Yeah.
And I was about 15, going on 16 then, and I thought at the time Zeppelin was a bit too freaky, too experimental for me. Yeah. At the time, I was more like, Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water, that kind of thing, and then Rainbow came.
Oh
yeah.
So I wanted to play drums like Simon Kirke from Free. That's
right.
how I started off. And then the guitar player at the time said, hey, the singer's going away, can you step in and get your brother in on drums? And then when we had the next band meeting in the bus shelter, that's where we used to have our band meetings as kids, 16, 15, 16.
Right.
And then they said, okay, you're the new singer. Okay, thanks. Can I sing? Well, you've got to start. And that's how it went. Yeah, that's how it was. Crazy. It's that crazy, zany British thing. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but we're all messed up and no place to go, I guess. But that's how it went with me. And then I was hugely influenced by Paul Rodgers as a singer, one of the best rock singers in the world, in my opinion, still today.
Absolutely.
And then Rainbow came out. I loved Dio singing, but what I also loved was Graham Bonnet. I saw him in 1980 in North Wales playing in a big ice stadium.
Oh, wow.
Which was then made as a concert hall, and I think there must have been 10,000 people.
Dang.
And we had Saxon were on stage as the support band, the opening act for Rainbow. Do you remember Biff with his tight trousers, shooting the Back in 1980, the funny times with them stretch trousers. Do you remember silver stretch trousers?
Oh, yeah.
The tighter, the better. And let me think, so then Rainbow comes on stage. There's Richie Blackmore, all black.
Oh, yeah.
Doing this demon thing. And then Graham Bonnet comes out on stage with a Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses, and that was it. After that, I was a huge fan.
I love Graham Bonnet, though.
And the great thing was, in 2018, I finally got a chance to tour with Graham Bonnet. And I used to hang out with him, and he's also from the north of England. So, we spent like 3 weeks together, and he's such a nice man. I never would have believed that big stars,
right?
Like from Rainbow, like Graham Bonnet. I never would have believed that he would have been such a down-to-earth, a very humble man he is, and a very nice man.
Well, and you guys probably got on like, you'd known each other your whole life, being kind of from the same part of the country and having kind of the same...
Yeah, he lives in California. He's lived in California for the past 30 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe even longer.
Yeah,
and he's got Alcatraz going again. Well, Beth.
Oh, my gosh. Alcatraz is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And Beth Amy Haverston, she guested on one song on the new a track called Dream World. She plays on the new Rock Emporium Brute Force album. And I had a lot of respect for Beth because only for Graham, I never knew this cool American female bass player, and that was Beth. Mm-hmm. And I was really impressed with it. Every night she went out there like a real professional and did her stuff, and it was amazing. And Beth and Graham, they're a couple, and they're the two of the night. My wife and me, we get on like a house on fire, if I can use that expression. It was just marvelous being with them. And hanging out for 3 weeks. And so I've been really fortunate in the 40 years that I've been messing around in music. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of really nice people. And, that's the funny thing. I know that the metal side's got this heavy element.
Right.
And we all look brutal. But most of the metal people that I've worked with and I've met over the last 40 years, they're all good human beings. I never met one nasty person, never.
That's awesome.
That's great.
We agree with that sentiment. It's like everybody's, metalheads are all a bunch of, tight, tough guy assholes, and most of the people we know in the metal scene are really cool, down to earth, give the shirt off their back, really just sweet people.
Exactly.
It's like we always say, it's a big metal family, and we're all just really great to just hang out and talk and just share great stories, and you have that great camaraderie.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, with Rock Emporium, I kept on asking musicians, and with this lockdown situation, because most metal hard rock musicians are all nice guys, nice girls, nice guys. They all wanted to be a part of this. They were all really enthusiastic. So So for me, my job producing it and putting it all together and arranging all the songs and getting everybody to record their parts. Some of them went in studios, but most of them did it at home. And when I phoned them up or sent them an email or a WhatsApp, they all jumped on for the chance to work together. So for me, there's been a positive side to COVID. I'm sorry to say that.
Right, right. What's that process like, though? I mean, being able to have to take all of those pieces and have to put them all together. I mean, that's got to be a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I mean, we did this. A production normally takes about 1.5 years, and we put this album together in 6 months.
Wow.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So, and I had some of the songs laid down, some of the basic tracks laid down from the tracks that I wrote, like the title, Brute Force. I'd already worked on a sketch for that. I had, let me think. I had Lethal Injection was a piece of music, a kind of piece of metal music that I had with a guitar riff, bass, drums. It was written out of frustration after losing my best friend to cancer.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
And for years, I had it sitting there for years. I couldn't touch the song. I just was blank when it came to lyrics and vocal melodies. I was just completely blank. And then suddenly, when I had the inspiration, Luca was the first person, actually, how this Brute Force album started. And with the inspiration from Luca and other colleagues, suddenly my mind opened up and the creative juices were flowing, I guess. And I knew exactly what I had to sing for Lethal Injection. So A Rings of Fire was another track that I didn't have drums to and a finished guitar part. But all the other tracks were all new. They're all brand spanking new. Luca had contacted me in 2019, and what happened was I was recording In Flagrante Delicto, my 5th solo album.
correct.
And then I came in between 200 birthday messages, people wishing me, which I really appreciate, wishing me happy birthday. I came in between, came across Luca's email, where he'd invited me to sing on his album, on his solo album, Into the Light, I believe it's called.
Right.
Fire Within was the album title. Into the Light was the track that he wanted me to sing on. And but when I listened, he sent once I contacted him, he sent me the whole album, the MP3s, and I came across Tearful Goodbye. It was his instrumental track.
Yes.
And I was so blown away with the emotion in his performance. I thought, hang on a minute, I've got a partly finished vocal that I never ever had any music to. I wonder if it's in the same key, and lo and behold, that became Fairy Tale on the album, the first ballad, track number 6.
Correct.
I only had to create some, say about 30% new lines and change some of the phrases on other bits. But it was, I don't know if it was fate or I don't know, but anyway, my voice fitted his music. So I contacted him and said, what do you think about me singing on your instrumental? And he said, man, I love it. I've been a fan of LG and yours. You're one of my favourite singers for years. Please. So we did Fairy Tale, and then I asked permission from his record company, Pride and Joy Records in Germany, if I could use the instrumental track, but then remix everything. And that's how the whole thing started.
Wow.
That's pretty fantastic.
And then I asked Luca, did he have any other ideas? So I wanted more. Give you a good example. Till the Day I Die, which is the video clip now up on YouTube.
Yes.
I was talking to him about the whole point of Rock Emporium with the first album, Society of Friends, was melodic rock. I wanted to go back to the roots. And with as a follow-up to Society of Friends, I said to Luke that it would be great if we could captured a little bit of the 80s and 90s style on this record, because that's the whole point about Rock Emporium, you know, and bringing all your musical ideas into one magical musical pot, but then in the old school style.
Absolutely.
So hard rock, melodic rock, and neoclassical metal. And so I said to him, I'm looking for, and also a bit of prog. I said, I'm a huge fan of Queensryche.
Oh.
I said, because when I was in Elegy, it just felt natural to join Elegy after I did my melodic solo stuff.
Right.
Because I was already into Operation Mindcrime, Queensryche, one of my favourite bands.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before Dream Theater came. Dream Theater was also cool, but that came a bit later.
Right.
And I said to Luca, do you like Queensryche? He said, yeah, of course, who doesn't?
Right.
What kind of track are you thinking about him? So I spoke to you know, if we can look at, for a ballad, Silent Lucidity, if we can do, if we can look at tracks from Operation Mindcrime, think about riffs like that. And when you listen to, and I said, also I want to do a kind of Whitesnake thing on the voice.
Right.
So I still want the melody in the song. So when you listen to or see the video clip, Till the Day I Die, which is it's not a negative song, it's just a song about someone reflecting on the past, about a lost love,
Right.
with some regrets. And it's the promise from the lady to the man was, you promised you'd love me till the day I die, you know.
Aww.
That's why I called it Till the Day I Die. And it's a great 80s, 90s, a la Whitesnake meets Queensryche song. And this is what I wanted to capture, this kind of old school, but still with a little modern hint through the album.
Right.
I love it already. Yeah, I'm a big '80s fan myself, so I love stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, you personally like Queensryche and Whitesnake?
Oh yes, very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just a shame we're all getting old now. I hope that David Coverdale's still touring. I'm not sure.
He is actually.
I'd like to see him live on until he's 125. I'm going to get to see him.
I follow him on.
Right. I saw. Sorry?
I follow him on Twitter, and he's very active, and he's still doing a whole lot of projects and still touring. So he's
great.
He's everywhere. So he's still rocking it out and still very much a presence out there in the social media world. So you might get a good chance.
That's cool. Yeah, I met Coverdale backstage at Hammersmith Odeon. I'll tell you a little story. When I was working with Zach Starkey, we got backstage passes. Our old manager used to work for The Who, the British rock band, The Who.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we once went to Peter Green's concert from Fleetwood Mac. He did a comeback show and he had really long nails. It was weird. and it was in a pub, of all places.
Wow.
Well, you have an area of London called Hammersmith, and there you have a famous venue, Hammersmith Odeon. And we got backstage passes, and we saw the show. Amazing. That was with John Lord on keyboards, Ian Pace on drums,
wow.
Mickey Moody, Bernie Marsden, the original Live in the Heart of the City lineup.
Damn.
In the early 80s. We hung out backstage, and Maureen Starkey, Ringo's ex, was with us, because Maureen was also, she loved Whitesnake, she loved, Deep Purple. Even though she came from the Beatles era, she still loved rock music, Maureen.
Right.
That's incredible.
So we're standing there backstage, and first of all, we bump into a famous Irish guy from... my mind's gone blank. From Thin Lizzy.
Oh, Phil Lynott.
No, played guitar, Whiskey in a Jar. I think he played the solo on it.
Oh.
Gary Moore.
Okay, Gary Moore, yeah.
And as we were walking upstairs, because it was a very narrow, dark staircase backstage at Hammersmith, I could hear this really strong Irish accent. I'm not sure now what you mean now. And he was a real fanatic guy. And we walked up, and there's Gary Moore, and he had this big scar on his face. I never knew that until you meet him face to face, and you see this big scar. I thought, wow, he looks like a real mean mother. I'm not going to say the other word. I'll leave it out just in case we get a stamp on the broadcast.
We're totally uncensored. Trust me, we're good.
Okay. But anyway, so that we walked backstage, and then there's John Lord. Everyone's hanging out, casual, having a drink. So we get together, we start. Coverdale comes over. He puts his arm round Maureen, and Maureen says to him, David, you were good tonight. And his reaction was, how'd you know, Maureen? I haven't slept with you yet.
Oh, shit. Oh, my goodness.
So I was like, he's my hero! But it just felt natural the way he said it. But if I would have tried that, I would have got a slap around the face from some English girl. But when Coverdale said it, it just sounded great. And I'll never forget that. And I was a huge fan. I was born on the same day, except he's 10 years older than me. So I was born in 1960 on the 22nd of September. And I understand Coverdale was born 10 years earlier on the 22nd of September. So we're both Virgos.
Oh, wow.
So it must be a singer thing, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, Till the Day I Die was also a kind of tribute to Coverdale as well. For his influence. I mean, he's influenced me and thousands of other singers around the world.
Absolutely.
And in the early days with Coverdale and Glenn Hughes singing harmonies together, it was like it was an amazing collaboration with the two voices live, because Glenn Hughes can go right up there to the stratosphere.
Right.
He must have no testicles, I guess. I don't know what's going on there.
On Brute Force, can you tell us who you enlisted to appear on the album?
Who have I what, sorry?
Enlisted? Who did you have on the album? Can you name some of the other artists that you had on this album?
Oh, some of the other musicians,
yes.
Cool singers. As I said, Wade Black, you know him from Florida, Crimson Glory.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I met Wade years ago through Camelot in the late 90s, doing a lot of stuff. I did a lot of work with the consortium project. Wade always asked me year in, year out, because he's having some success himself now. He's on Frontier Records from Italy.
Right.
Okay.
I checked out his new video clip. He's got loads of hits. I think it's, 65,000 hits or something like that, views on his video clip. So he's doing really great, and I'm proud of him, because Crimson Glory for me was also a cool American band. It was a Florida, wasn't it a Florida-based band?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes,
If memory serves me right, yeah. So Wade's one of the special guest singers. I've also got the John Lucas band, Stamina, his lead singers, also doing. They both shared some lead bits on the Queen tribute.
Okay.
If you remember, in one vision in the middle,
Right.
there's a small piece. I think Brian May must have sang it originally when they recorded it, Queen.
Right.
So I asked the guys, would they do that lead line to give it some, a different atmosphere and another aspect to the arrangement of the song. Then as far as musicians, I've got my old bass player, colleague, friend, Jan Belsma from Vengeance. I used to sing with Arjen Lukather, and Jan in Vengeance years ago in the original Vengeance lineup, from the Netherlands. I've got Beth Amy Evanston from Graham Bonnet Alcatraz, as I mentioned. Then the musicians who performed on Lucas' ballad, which is called Fairy Tale, that was the guys, the rhythm section from Malmsteen.
Oh, wow.
Patrick Johansson, I'm not sure if you saw that. And I think you pronounce it Svante Henryson. He played the bass track on number 6, Fairy Tale, on the album.
Okay.
And then I've got my old consortium project elegy colleague on guitar, Patrick Rondat. I'm sure you know Patrick Rondat.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, good. I'm glad, because he's one of my guitar heroes. Luca, I'm a huge fan of Luca Solito. Luca's not only just playing on the album, he's writing about 4 of the songs on the record. Darkest Secrets, which is a killer neoclassical metal track. Till the Day I Die, that's track number 3.
Right.
He's also written Fairy Tale, the ballad, number 6. He's playing guitar on Lethal Injection, which is turned out to be a really cool metal track, very up-tempo, in your face. And then he, I just mentioned quickly at the time when we were doing this album, there was another terrorist attack in France.
Yeah.
And I'd been working with Patrick Rondat on the title track, Brute Force. And it was a very sad moment, especially for Patrick, because he lives in a suburb of Paris. And the crazy, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was religious-based terrorist attack again. But anyway, I was so taken aback by that. Luca happened to send me the music for Where Do We Go From Here? And it was a nylon string acoustic theme, and it was very short, but it had such how can I say, it had such an emotional atmosphere with the string part that he played on the keyboard and his nylon string guitars and his beautiful melodic solo. Then I just got this melody in my head, and I recorded it in one evening. I just went in there and wrote one line, and I wrote about if only we could escape, if you like, to a far-off place where there was no war, there was no greed, where people work together in harmony, live together in harmony, where we help each other out instead of always wanting to fight each other. And then come back to reality, where do we go from here? And that was the 4th song that Luca wrote, and for me, it has a lot of meaning, because it was while we were doing this album in the lockdown, we had the terrorist attack. So, going on to drummers, I've got Alan Sorensen. He used to play in a band called Pretty Maids from Denmark.
Yep, know that
And
guy.
Royal Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Royal Hunt, Andre Anderson's Royal Hunt. Alan, I contacted him. He was another person out the metal world, rock metal world, who is so down to earth. He was from day one really enthusiastic. And I said to him, I've got the big tracks. They need drums on them. And we're trying to get this thing done during the lockdown really quick. Have you got time? He just dropped everything he was doing. He has his own studio at home, and he put down these. I sent him each song, and then he put down a track. He'd send it to me. He'd say, "What do you think?" I'd say, "Cool, next one." I had a drum pattern with drum fills, etc. made. That's how, because otherwise we couldn't record all the guitars and vocals and bass and keyboards. And then what Alan did was he just took what he listened to the drum fills, and he said, "Is it okay if I do sometimes my own interpretation?" I said, "Yeah, please, be my guest." And that's what he did, and I think he did a marvellous job. Other drummer, I've got Ida de Graaf. He comes from Within Temptation. He plays on the tribute, One Vision, the Queen tribute.
Yeah, and they're more of a...
Ida for years.
Within Temptation's more of a progressive power metal project.
Which?
Within Temptation, they're more of a progressive power.
Yeah, that's right. They're that gothic prog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
And I worked with Eva on Consortium 4, and we did a video clip together. His wife was doing also singing lead and backing vocals, and she was in the clip with us.
Awesome.
And ever since then, I've been a huge fan of Eva. He reminds me of Stuart Copeland from The Police.
Yeah.
Because he has a very talented groove style of playing. So he just doesn't play hi-hat straightforward. He'll do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's just wonderful listening when you hear back what he does. And that's why in the solo section of the Queen tribute One Vision, you can hear his talents. It's just jumped straight out of the track. Him and Martin Helmontel, my old bass player, colleague, friend from Elegy, Martin did a kind of his own style bass groove together with the really cool, if you want to call it funky drums, but really amazing drum groove from Eva. Then I've got from the band Headless from Italy. We toured together in 2014 with Fate's Warning from the US.
Fantastic.
A great bunch of guys. Only respect. Amazing band, Fate's Warning.
Agreed.
Also progressive.
Very big fan.
And their singer, I believe he was one of the ex-Malmsteen singers. He couldn't do the last 6 shows. They contacted me. Could you step in and do the last 6 shows? That was through Croatia into Bulgaria, and then and then Athens. So I did that last leg. We did the rehearsals one night before. That was in near. Where's that city? What's the name of that city that's sinking in Italy? It's just gone out. Venice. That was it. We did the rehearsals near Venice, and then jumped in the bus, and off we went, and then did 6 shows, making our way from all the old East Bloc countries, ex-communist countries, right across, up through into, finished in Athens. So ever since then, I've been in contact with Headless, and I'm a huge fan of their music. I asked them, would they write a song for me, and I wrote the track Dream World. They wrote the music, and then I put the lyrics and vocal melodies later.
Oh, wow.
And then I asked Amy Havenston to do the bass from Graham Bonnet's band. So let me think, just so I haven't missed anybody, so you don't slap me on the wrist. I work with a Swedish band. I'm doing their second album right at the moment. A band called Von Belzer. I did the first album. It was released on AOR Heaven, Germany. That was called Cultural Days. Came out in 2018. And now doing their second album. Now, the bass player from Belzer, I asked, would he do the track My Confession? My Confession is written, the music is written from the ex-Crystal Tears guitar player. You mentioned Crystal Tears.
Right.
Yeah. So that was cool. Eric jumped in and did the bass for me, and then sent it over from Sweden. It was a bit tough trying to travel. I wanted to do the video clip, by the way, in Italy with Luca together with Alan. But Italy was in total lockdown. So you just simply weren't allowed to go in the country. So as I said, I've been fortunate that we were able to do in different studios, whether it was a DAW, a digital audio workstation at home, or a real home studio, or a recording studio. Martin Helmontel from Elegy went to a recording studio to do his bass track. It varied, but at the end result for me, I had one of the last tracks that was written was the opening song called In Isolation, and it doesn't mean to do with the lockdown. It's just a fictional story about someone who's hiding stories in their memory, hiding the truth. They don't want the truth to come out, and if it comes out, then the Schmidt is going to hit the fan.
The Schmidt.
Yeah. Schmidt. See, I didn't swear. No bad words from the Englishman.
You're probably the first one who has consciously not wanted to swear.
Yeah, well, as long as I can say wanker, then during the broadcast, then I'm happy, because every Brit has to say wanker. You know.
We love the British
Politicians,
slang.
what are politicians? Wankers.
They're all wankers. I love that word.
They're wankers.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, Bob, so getting back to In Isolation, just to finish off the story, otherwise I'll have it on the phone until tomorrow morning.
Oh.
But anyway, the last track that was written was In Isolation. Bob Weitzmer, he plays with Arian. So I guess you know Arian Newcastle, my old Vengeance colleague.
Yes.
He has his Arian project now for years. Well, Bob did the live DVD. And Bob is also on the In Flagrante Delicto video clip on YouTube.
Correct.
The people who are interested, they want to check it out.
Absolutely.
So, we had Jeroen from the Real. Jeroen does all the artwork layouts, which is really amazing. And he's also a great keyboard player. And Jeroen did the orchestral intro. He also did all the keyboards on... he's a huge Queen fan, and he did all the sequencer parts, orchestral parts on One Vision. And he did a similar type of intro. That's what we were looking for, something that we could use as an opening track for live shows. We hope to go on tour with this album soon. And that was the last track. Bob wrote the music, and I stuck a kind of like... It's got this double bass drum... I guess you could call it neoclassical metal. And, but tons of melody from the vocals over the top.
That's right down our alley.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, great.
So I know
Anyway,
you're.
so that's about it. Oh, and one last thing.
Sure.
Chris Gildenlow. Chris lives in. He's from Sweden, the bass player.
Right.
Chris Gildenlow, but he is married to a Dutch journalist and lives here in Holland now for the past 10, 12, 15 years. Still a young dude, only in his 30s. I met him when he was in his early 20s, and I had him join up with Consortium, doing live shows with us years ago. And I was always impressed with Chris Gildenlow. He came from the band Pain of Salvation,
Okay.
which his brother formed. Apparently, he's also another Mr. Gildenlow.
Yeah.
And Chris, it started with, he was going to do one bass track, and it ended up being 4. So Chris plays the bass. He plays the bass on In Isolation. He plays the bass on Lethal Injection, just to give you an idea. And for me, Chris is one of my favourite bass players at the moment. He's a very talented. He sings also. He plays guitar as well. He's just a lucky bastard. He can do anything.
Well,
he can make butterflies farting out of his arse. I hate him. I'm not going to work with him again.
Well, you definitely have surrounded yourself with a group of very talented people, not to take away from the fact that you've definitely got talent yourself.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. With all of the great projects that you've done, and including your solo album, which, I watched the YouTube video for that clip for In
Flagrante Delicto.
I did, yeah. Because, honestly, we center around, underground power metal and what's going on out there now. And Luca was like, hey, I'm doing this thing with Ian Parry. And we were like, yeah, let's go check it out. And I looked at Toby and I said, where have we been that we haven't been familiarized with this in the past? And this is pretty fantastic stuff.
Sure
so we're just we're delighted to have an opportunity to share this with everybody and for us to just check it out in general. This is pretty fantastic stuff. We're familiar with Eternity's End and with Crystal Tears and stuff, but the Consortium project is pretty amazing, and now this Brute Force, which
just blew me away.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. So we're delighted to find something new for us, and you've got a chance to work with some pretty amazing people, and put together a really amazing project. So
Appreciate it. Well, we say in English, better late than never. I'm 60 now, so in a couple of years I may pop off, you know. So. At least we got a chance. At least we got a chance to do an interview on Powerslaves, so I really appreciate it.
Well, so tell our listeners and tell us where we can find, the CDs, MP3s. Where can people get a hold of Brute Force and, your solo albums, all of your back label, anything that you want to let people know where we can find your material?
Let me think. Okay, so I'm with Metal Mind Productions from Poland. They're doing worldwide. And I understand that they work with a company called MVD USA. So it's the distributors in the USA is called MVD. So if anyone Googles MVD USA in the States, that they can order through the USA distributors the album. And then, of course, if you want the download, you just type in on Google the title of the album, Spotify, iTunes, Deezer, TikTok, I believe. So it's on all the digital streaming platforms as well.
And then, of course,
I would love it if people buy the album, because I'm old school. I love albums. I loved LPs.
Yes, I do too. And then, of course, there is IanParry.com. If you guys want information about Ian Parry, definitely check out IanParry.com. I've been there for a couple of days just reading about your biography. There is so much information. You have had a pretty amazing career. And just finding out all about what you've been doing has been pretty interesting too. So I have to say, I've just been blown away.
I'm glad you like it. That's the great thing about music. Even after we're gone, I guess, the music's just going to live on, and it may take a while for other people to discover it. But for me, that's the only legacy I love, is to leave the music behind, and that maybe in the future will make a few people happy. And it's there for everybody. I'll pass on my music to somebody else later on, and I'll make sure that it's always available for people worldwide. But anyway, any support that we get for this new Brute Force Rock Emporium 2 album is much appreciated. I would love to get back to America, and the last time I played was in 2003 in Cleveland, Ohio, with Elegy.
That's a long time.
At a festival. Yeah, Cleveland, Ohio. That was organised through Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles magazine, the Canadian-American magazine.
That was an incredible magazine. I used to love it. It was the last time I
played in the US, 2003, so I'd love to get my bum back over.
Well, hopefully when the pandemic is over, things open up, there'll be a lot more things happening for everybody.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how it all goes, but I'm sure eventually it's going to clear up. I just hope that I've been following what's going on in America for many, many years, and I feel sad that a lot of people go through tough times, and there's a lot of people living out on the streets. And yeah. I really, when Trump came into power, I didn't personally like Trump, but what I liked about him was his idea to put people back at work and make America great again. And I really hope that the Democrats do help the American people and don't just put money in their own pockets. I really, from the bottom of my heart, I hope that work comes back to the US, the pandemic disappears, everybody starts earning money again, and they can build up their lives and have great lives and have a great future, because no one in America deserves this crap. No one in the UK or anywhere in the world deserves this crap.
Yeah.
So I'll keep praying. I'm not religious, but I'll say a little prayer for everybody in the States, and it'll be all right.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Any last words, any last things you'd like to say to anybody who's listening about yourself, your project, anything?
Well, I'm not going to die straight away, so I don't need to make an epitaph or something like that. I just want to thank you guys both, for giving me the opportunity on Powerslave via Metal Messiah in Florida, for enabling us to get a message out and help us spread the word about our music. And thanks to all the fans in America for supporting us all these years.
Well, we appreciate you
I
taking...
hope I get my bum over to play in the States. To just
we hope so, too.
one more time.
Well, we appreciate you spending some time talking to us this afternoon, or this evening for you. And we can't wait to share all of the great music that you have with our listeners, too. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad you're paying the bill.
You're welcome.